Welcome to the Polite Conversations podcast, where every episode is focused on civility, decorum, and good manners. And I'm your lovable, non-controversial host, Ina. If you know me, you know I definitely don't like to ruffle any feathers at all. Hello there, dear listeners. Welcome to the first Polite Conversations episode of 2025. I want to thank everyone who supported the show this past year for helping to keep it going. Got a lot of great stuff planned for the year. I want to thank all you lovely listeners, and hey, the hate listeners too. You do your part in boosting the numbers. So yeah, thank you. And I wish you all a wonderful year ahead. But gosh, it feels like a few decades happened over the last 12 months. And all I can hope for realistically is that things do not get worse than they already are. A global rise in fascism, live-stream genocide still unfolding before our very eyes, becoming more and more normalized by the day. It's hard to imagine how things could actually get worse, but unfortunately they always can. So let's just hope they don't. Here are some things I hope you have on your list of New Year's resolutions. I know I do. Number 1, to be more vocal in your opposition to what's being done to Palestinians. Number 2, to, actively want to defeat fascism around the world. Number 3, to try and understand what drives extremism of all sorts and to understand how similar all these forms of radicalization and hate are. And number 4, to not give an inch to mealy-mouthed centrist bullshit, to recognize it for the right-wing laundering, legitimizing awfulness it really is. That's quite a list, I know. But with that said, let's move on to today's topic, which is not a cathartic mocking of some IDW dumbass, but some more serious coverage of a heinous attack on people who were just going about their daily lives, enjoying a Christmas market in Magdeburg, Germany. I thought this attack in particular was something I should cover because, as it turns out, the attacker in this case was a very vocal ex-Muslim, an anti-Muslim extremist, and a far-right AfD supporter who held some paranoid, conspiracy theory type views that we've seen repeatedly crop up in the new atheist scene. Things like great replacement and delusions about the Islamization of Europe. These are things I've been podcasting about, writing about, and warning about for years, specifically about the increasing new atheist and related ex-Muslim radicalization and the types of conspiracy theories that they help spread. A while ago, I did a piece on new atheists spreading the Great Replacement theory, which I've posted on Patreon and made available to all subscribers, including free ones. So if you'd like to check that out, become a Patreon subscriber today. Even a free subscription will get you access to that piece. I'll link it in the show notes. I also recently wrote a multi-part series on the ex-Muslim to trad-fash pipeline on Patreon too, where I detail the overlaps with eugenics-adjacent movements and figures, with far-right racists, and with the tech right and popular viewpoints in the scene that are reminiscent of things you hear in the manosphere, and a weird full circle of coming back to embracing ultra-conservative trad views. So folks, if you enjoy my content and would like to support this show in these challenging times, you can become a paid member of the Patreon, which will get you access to extended episodes, articles like the multi-part one I just mentioned, patron chats, and more, it is because of listeners and subscribers like you that this podcast is possible at all. And if you want to support in non-monetary ways, you can do so by becoming a free member on Patreon, by subscribing to the podcast on your podcatchers, of course, or the YouTube channel, which I'll link in the show notes, and by leaving podcast reviews. Engagement, reviews, retweets, likes, and comments are what we need to feed the algorithm constantly to stay afloat. So please help out with that. Share the podcast, rate the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. It's important and much, much appreciated. Anyway, now going back to this recent attack in Magdeburg, Germany. Well, this is sadly a very, very under-discussed type of radicalization that flies below too many people's radars. The atheist or ex-Muslim strand of radicalization, that is. It has a lot in common with other types of far-right extremism, certainly. As we've seen, fear-mongering around the topic of Islam is a rallying point for many on the far right, be they secular or Hindu, Christian, or multi-faith dedicated defenders of Israel. And when it comes to the ex-Muslim scene in general, well, they're a pretty handy tool for right-wing anti-Muslim narratives, just like you see the right utilize other token minorities to gain a sense of legitimacy and authenticity. And there's such a massive asymmetry to how the right constantly uses and props up ex-Muslims every opportunity they get, while left-leaning platforms have little interest in countering these narratives, or even hearing from ex-Muslims that do not hold far-right views. Even on left-leaning platforms, you'll see these very right-wing types of ex-Muslims featured. And that is why you'll encounter very few ex-Muslim public figures that lean left. Because entire grifty careers are built on this stuff. It's a whole industry. But to be clear though, there's nothing about leaving Islam or religion that should make you right-wing. But the rewards are so great in the West. If you do, that's what we end up seeing mostly. But yeah, even after this specific ex-Muslim attack, I've seen zero platforms make an effort to find someone that can speak to this issue, specifically from personal experience. It's true. There are maybe like one or two left-leaning ex-Muslim public figures, so they're hard to find. I get that. But part of that is because no one wants to hear from them. So it's like this weird, vicious cycle. I know a lot of podcasters and media types follow me, and they're aware of me, but I certainly got no media requests after this. So yeah, it seems like we will have to sit back and keep hearing right-wing ex-Muslim spin on this, right-wing ex-Muslim attack. But this episode, I guess, is my attempt to counter some of that. As you'll hear us discuss in this conversation, it doesn't even seem to matter to many on the right, ex-Muslims included, that this attacker was a very vocal ex-Muslim. What seems to matter more is his Muslim name. And sadly, as I record this, there's news coming in about another attack using a vehicle in New Orleans. We don't have many details yet, but that did not stop right-wingers from saying, oh, he was a Mexican who crossed the border illegally. Then it came out that it's someone with a Muslim name, though someone who was born and raised in Texas, someone who served in the military. And you'll never guess which of those details people have used to make assumptions about a whole group. Ah, that's right. It's not the fact that he was born and raised in Texas. It's not the fact he served in the army. It was his Muslim name once again. I mean, he very well could be motivated by Islamist extremist views. There are some early reports of there being an ISIS flag in his truck, so it wouldn't surprise me, but as of when I record this, it's not fully confirmed yet, so I don't want to speculate. Twitter, however, is overrun with tweets about how all Muslims need to be sent back, how they aren't and can't ever be Americans, despite having been born and raised there. And some are trying to use this as an opportunity to say that actually racial segregation is what's needed. I've seen a few accounts try to pin this on DEI. They went to the FBI New Orleans Twitter account, famously woke FBI, and searched their tweets for anything mentioning diversity. And they found that in June of last year, they held a diversity agent recruiting event. And that's all it takes for some to pin the blame on diversity as a whole. Then there's a U.S. government official, Senator Randy Fine, who describes himself as a proud Zionist. He tweeted, "Muslim terror has attacked the United States again. The blood is on the hands of those who refuse to acknowledge the worldwide #Muslim problem. It's high time to deal with this fundamentally broken and dangerous culture." This is not the first time he's tweeted using the #Muslim problem, by the way. Gad Saad has been jerking it all day too, just giddy with excitement because he has a whole new reason to fearmonger about Muslims. I don't think he even waited for the attacker's name to come in. He was already fearmongering about Muslims. But he tweeted, "Is there any amount of evidence that can be gathered about a religion subsequent to which the West might declare it as an existential threat to our way of life, and hence seditious?" I mean, these guys sound a heck of a lot like Nazis, talking about the JQ or the final solutions, do note. It's also interesting how such broad generalizations don't come up after far-right white nationalist attacks. In fact, we can see through this Magdeburg attack that even when the attacker is anti-Muslim, all that matters is that he's a brown man from the Middle East. Whether he's an Islamist, which is looking likely in the New Orleans case, or an anti-Muslim, the attack is used to demonize non-white people, to further racist agendas, to attack vulnerable minorities. After a far-right white nationalist attack, you won't see random white people being demonized. You generally won't see white people being demonized as a whole. But if a person of non-white background is the perpetrator, that is used to demonize large groups of people without fail. I think the lesson here is that racists are going to be racist no matter what, no matter who the attacker turns out to be, no matter what their motivations are. Racists will try their best to either pin it on immigrants or diversity or the Muslims, even if the attacker, like in the Magdeburg case, is a vocal anti-Muslim, or even if it has nothing to do with Muslims at all. We've seen many, many cases where Muslims aren't involved, but before any information is out, the usual suspects are out there fear-mongering about Islam. Because it's an easy scapegoat. The groundwork for that has been laid for decades. A lot of people are willing to believe bad things about Muslims as a whole, and it doesn't take very much convincing at all. So, yeah, what I think we need to learn from these types of attacks is that we've seen this method of ramming a car into innocent people used by white nationalists, incels, ex-Muslims, Islamists, Kahanists even. And while it's important to study and analyze the particular aspects of each case and what led to their strain of radicalization and who and what their hate is directed at, it's also important to see how similar these types of attacks are across different varieties of extremists. My heart goes out to the people affected by these despicable acts of violence, both in Magdeburg and in New Orleans. More hate and fear-mongering, though, is surely not the answer. Now, the episode. I had hoped to get this out sooner, but alas, with the holidays and family stuff, I just couldn't get it done in time. But here it is now.
One thing that I find really fascinating is that this attack took place just hours after the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, had tweeted to his hundreds of millions of Twitter followers that only the AfD can save Germany.
A crowd, killing at least 5 people, according to German officials, and injuring more than 200. A 50-year-old, originally from Saudi Arabia, who once described himself as history's most aggressive critic of Islam. Particularly opposed to the Saudi regime. On social media, Abdul Mohsin has repeatedly expressed support for the German far-right AfD party, also claiming Germany wants to Islamize Europe. Now is time to close our borders, says this man Tom. Anger was seen on the streets of Magdeburg earlier this evening because hundreds of far-right activists taken to the streets calling for the deportation of migrants in the country.
This attacker, he said that he was pro-AfD, he was against the Saudi government, he was against Islam. It's going to raise a lot of questions that make it hard to cast him as the typical ISIS-style attacker. It's going to leave people in Germany wondering exactly what spurred him on to do this.
Well, the big question everybody wants to know is why. And the uncomfortable answer is there may be no really good reason. We may never know the exact motivations of this guy.
So I think it's going to fuel those anti-immigrant movements that already exist there and spell a very uncertain future for German politics in the coming year.
Terrorists also copycat other terrorists. Vehicle rammings have happened in the United States.
He was a skilled professional, a doctor. He wasn't a radicalized youth, as we've seen in previous attacks. He was deeply Islamophobic, despite coming from a Muslim country, and was an apparent supporter of far-right immigration policies. Also, according to the German tabloid Bild, protesters walked through Magdeburg after the attack, shouting, "Anyone who doesn't love Germany should leave Germany. Migration kills, and we must take back our cities, our villages, and our homeland." We must take back our cities, our villages, and our homeland.
Even if this man was anti-Muslim, his profile is still one of a Saudi immigrant to Germany. And so that is going to fuel the rhetoric, at least I believe that it will fuel the rhetoric for the far right.
Welcome to episode 89, an urgent topic I thought needed covering, which is the recent attack on the Magdeburg Christmas market in Germany. Many right-wingers immediately jumped to the conclusion that it was an Islamist attack, but it turned out to be quite the opposite. If you've been following this story, I've got a friend of the show here and scholar of religion, Ilyas. How's it going? You've been on a couple of times before, and I believe we've talked on plenty of Twitter spaces as well.
Yeah, I think first time we talked on a lot of Twitter spaces, and last time I was here, it was about like the whole issue of Palestine in Germany,
right?
and the German mindset about the ongoing genocide in Gaza. So
yeah, which is quite a story in itself, and keeps being a more and more bizarre story. But
indeed,
yeah, thank you so much for joining me. So close to Christmas. We're going to try and do this as a quick-ish episode just because I thought it was such a strange situation developing so bizarrely. Like, so many people jumped to the conclusion that it was an Islamist attack, and they were speaking based on that. And, I thought you'd be a great person to talk to. You are German and also Muslim and also a scholar of religion. So, yeah, tell me some of your initial thoughts. Because I think you shared with me the story. I was out and about in between Christmas lunches and dinners, and so I didn't really have time to look at it too carefully, but I just quickly glanced at what people were saying about it, and they were saying, it's an Islamist attack by a Syrian immigrant, and I thought, oh gosh, here we go. And very quickly after that, I started seeing actually, it's an ex-Muslim atheist attack by a Saudi psychologist. And I was like, what? Yeah.
Yeah. Like I would lie to you if I say that it didn't took me by surprise, that it was actually an ex-Muslim doing it.
Yeah.
So the thing was, I heard of it, but I didn't, at a particular evening, I didn't want it to get too distracted because, of course, events like this, they are always like really depressing.
Yeah.
And I'm currently
So
sitting
sad.
on, and I'm currently sitting also on my proposal for the PhD. So I was trying to stay focused, and I just at some point in the evening I just peeked on Twitter, and then I started reading stuff about Islam enemy, ex-Muslim, whatever, and his Twitter account, and then I got intrigued, and then I was saying, is this just like some Twitter rumor?
Yeah.
But really quickly, like German media picked up on this late in the night. Even Springer, published like a quick statement summing up, because someone was pointing out he made the address where they catched him apparently was leaked, and people immediately made a connection to this account because he's not a small account on Twitter.
Yeah, he's got like 45 or 44,000 followers on Twitter.
And so he was certainly connected here, and then people all of a sudden starting to look at this, and to be clear, like he was not just some ex-Muslim, just some person of Saudi descent who was an atheist and fled because of apostasy. He was like a hardcore right-wing, anti-Islam, anti-Muslim, anti-Muslim immigration.
AFD supporter,
that kind of ex-Muslim, like the Ayaan Hirsi Ali type.
So the normal ex-Muslim. Your average ex-Muslim.
On a public space, let's
of course.
Let's say it like that. Yeah, like the one who made a career choice out of it.
That's right. Yeah. Let me just put a disclaimer out there. You know, I'm an ex-Muslim, but I'm a leftist, and I know many non-believers of Islamic background who have not gone right-wing at all. But these are not public figures. These are just regular people. In fact, they have been deterred by the face of the ex-Muslim movement to identify as such publicly, because it's got such negative connotations, unfortunately, now. And majority of the public figures who have made a career out of this, who have made this like their sole identity, much like new atheists, have been like rabidly right-wing, rabidly used to spread anti-Muslim fear-mongering, anti-immigrant fear-mongering, etc. So yes, continue.
Yes, so then I was taken by this by surprise, and another account I was following was actually like, a little bit super cynical, and like collecting all the people, all the great accounts who automatically assumed it was an Islamist attack, and then it turned out like he was also an AFD supporter, and like, for example, Geert Wilders in the Netherlands.
Oh yeah,
who still apparently is insisting, because this tweet is still up, that it was like an Islamist attack, even though the account of the attacker, he himself was tweeting on the previous tweets of him how much he considers him a hero and so on. So it's a bizarre situation.
So wait, so the attacker had tweets considering Geert Wilders a hero?
Yes.
Okay. And also this thing happened on the same day or the next day after Elon Musk had said something like, only the AFD can save Germany now.
Yeah, I think it was the same day, yes. I think it was the same day, roughly the same day, yeah.
Right, so people immediately went into like, I told you so mode, like, oh yeah, you see why we need the AFD, because there's too many migrants and too many Muslims being let into Germany.
Yeah, there was also like a weird stuff happening apparently, but I had no opportunity to double check it. I know his account, the account of the attacker, was temporarily suspended.
Yes, it was.
Now it's back up, but apparently some tweets are gone.
Yeah, they are, I believe.
So it seems kind of Elon is trying to whitewash this account in a certain way.
Yeah.
Or to say cleanse it of content that could be associated with his political leanings.
But I don't think he can get rid of it all, because that would mean getting rid of the whole account. So there is a lot of stuff still there.
This guy tweeted about nothing else.
Yeah, he really didn't.
This is the whole thing, So what we are currently at in Germany is that police is saying that it doesn't seem to be an Islamist attack, which apparently put it out of the range of it was a terrorist attack, because terrorism can only be Islamist.
Of course. Yeah. Yep.
So
or if you're doing it to CEOs.
Oh yeah, if you kill mass murdering CEOs, then
not even mass, just one. But yeah.
No, a mass murdering CEO.
A mass murdering. Yes, if you kill a mass murdering CEO. Yes, that is terrorism, apparently.
That was the framing I was going for. Yeah. No, there's certainly an atmosphere of confusion in Germany, and also stubbornness and insisting on a right-wing side. And of course, people have rediscovered Taqiyya.
Of course.
And one of the first accounts who would actually jump on that bandwagon was Ali Utlu. I think some in the United States and Canada probably have heard that name. People who are following Hassan Abi. We were making it was hilarious on a German side, because this was certainly not on my bingo board. That Hassan Abi would talk about Ali Utlu by the end of the year. Because Ali Utlu that's such a German meme, this guy. So he's an ex-Muslim as well. But he's the most cartoonish of them all. And
so
I mean it at a global level.
Yasmin Mohammed kind of cartoonish?
I think he's able to top her.
No.
You have no idea.
How do you top not all Nazis are extremists or...
First of all, you have to consider his political career. At some point, he was social democrat. At some point, he was a liberal. Then he supported AfD. Then he went back from supporting AfD. He tiptoed in every party in Germany that ever existed, I think.
Oh, wow.
So because he was always at some point alienated by them for whatever reason. The very fact that he got alienated by AfD was because some AfD members actually had trouble with accepting a Turkish gay member, because he's a gay activist. But he's not an LGBTIQ activist. He's one of the types of gay who is not queer.
Dave Rubin or Douglas Murray, who
yes,
are anti-gay rights, basically.
And super hardcore transphobic.
Of course, yeah.
Super hardcore transphobic, and also fascinated by Kemalist Turkish ideology, which is by the way super nationalistic.
Right.
So that's weird. So he's crazy, and he immediately went on. The moment he recognized the name, because he knew him, he immediately went on Twitter and said I always suspected him to be a Saudi spy, an agent actually implemented by the Saudi regime to snitch on dissidents in Germany. And that's why he blocked him. But he's still shocked and so on, but he didn't consider him a real apostate. It's the first time he talks about that, So
firstly, let me say that I have experienced this excommunication from apostasy many times over, because they always tell me that I'm not a real ex-Muslim because I'm not right-wing enough and I'm not hateful enough of Muslims. So somehow that makes me less authentic.
This is peaks. Not a true Scotsman fallacy.
Exactly. Exactly. So they're doing this also with this terrorist, bizarrely, because they want, on the other side, to distance from how right-wing and how just hateful he is now in the full public view. So they're like, no. Anyone too left-wing is not a real ex-Muslim, but also this guy is also not a real ex-Muslim because he's a terrorist. So how is this different from, like, you know, the atheist scene and ex-Muslim scene would complain about, like, Muslims who would be like, well, ISIS are not real Muslims, right?
Yeah, or also, like I would even go deeper than that. Muslims who say that, like, ISIS is a Mossad ploy or something like that. I mean, these ideas exist.
Yeah.
These kind of conspiracy theories
Yeah.
exist. That, like, ISIS or Al Qaeda or whatever, that these are like CIA ploys, Mossad ploys. That none of them are actual Muslims.
Yeah.
There are people who believe that.
Yeah.
And they are currently on the exact same path. Like this guy is some sort of secret sleeper agent for 6 years in Germany, just to snap one day for whatever reason.
Just pretending to be ex-Muslim so he can make ex-Muslims look bad.
Yeah, for sure, because this is what's happening right now.
Right. It's bizarre. And let me just say, obviously, it's bizarre and funny how ridiculous the conspiracies around this are. But it's truly very tragic, like, what came from this. Like, I think the death toll is now at 5 people?
It should be 5, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I saw 4 or 5. Like,
it's so tragic that...
The youngest is a 9-year-old child.
Oh, no. That's so sad.
Yeah, so like it's and right before Christmas also.
I know.
And it's a tragic event.
Yeah.
But you have like these vultures basically who are all over this, trying to exploit it in whatever way, and they're not even consistent in what way they want to exploit it.
Yeah.
Like it's
just whatever works in the moment.
Whatever works. Like even like from all the taqiyya conspiracies I've seen right now, they are so all over the place.
So let's explain what taqiyya is for the audience.
Should we explain first what it really is or what people believe it is?
From my personal experience, I just want to say that even growing up in Saudi Arabia, I had never, ever heard of this. Ever. I don't know any Muslims in real life that have ever talked about it or have ever heard of it. It is so obscure and not commonly discussed even, that really the only place most Muslims that I know have ever heard of it is the Western far right.
It's true.
Because they use it all the time. That is the only place that so many Muslims have discovered this concept of taqiyya. So now, so why don't you explain how it's used in the West, firstly, including Sam Harris, who has used it before as well.
So the understanding of taqiyya among specifically Western right-wingers, and this is also, by the way, same with me. It was the first time I was introduced to this when I was still a teenager, like before my studies. It's like, so taqiyya is allegedly a Muslim concept, which
Shia.
Like first, I'm first talking about the narrative.
Okay.
And then we talk about what it actually is.
Okay.
So apparently, for them, taqiyya is a Muslim concept which allows the Muslim to basically not just allow. So the Muslim has the duty to lie to the kuffar, to the infidels, to the disbelievers, to basically, if the interest of Islam requires it. So like you as a Muslim, you have the duty to pretend or lure the kuffar into a false idea of security by pretending to be moderate, by pretending to be liberal, by pretending to be apparently also ex-Muslim, and just to strike them at the right moment when they are weak. So you can basically you can follow the secret plans of domination of Islam from behind the curtain.
So this sounds so much like an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
The shifty, conniving Muslims. planning domination by secretly making you believe that they are liberal or moderate.
I mean, like the whole idea of it from really early on, like I think that this thing started to get like momentum like in the early 2000s already, was like to give like a mythos to explain the existence of Muslims who do not fit, or people of Muslim descent in general, who do not fit the stereotype of the bloodthirsty Al-Qaeda fanatic.
Right.
So, and they discovered this concept and they perverted it, shifted into whatever they wanted to be. So in reality, what it actually is, concepts like this, it's not purely Shia. Concepts like this exist also in Sunni Islam.
Oh, okay.
But it is, for historical reason, it has been more important in Shia Islam.
I see.
Because of a history of Sunni domination. So what it actually is that a Muslim has the right to deny his beliefs in a context of persecution.
Right.
So a Muslim can deny his own beliefs if expressing their beliefs could lead to a like life-threatening, healthy-threatening circumstances within a particular society. So they are living like in a regime where there is a persecution of Muslims. The Muslim is not expected to like publicly express his faith. He can keep it in secret. For Shias in particular,
just for self-preservation purposes.
For Shias in particular, this meant also historically to pretend to be Sunni.
I see. Okay.
In like an environment where they could be like an anti-Shia
right
policy under a Sunni regime. So it's actually a quite straightforward and understandable concept. From all like the indeed regressive concept that can exist in Orthodox Islam, this is by far in no way noteworthy or particular, but it has been used. It was useful for the far right.
It's just like, you know what? If someone is threatening your life, you can be like, "No, I'm not Muslim, so don't kill me." That's it, right? Like
yes, like you can just you can pretend a false persona. You can. I mean, it also implies, of course, which is the important part here, that you can lax on your other religious duties.
Right, so they're like, eat some pork to prove you're not Muslim.
Eat some pork. Don't wear hijab. Don't maybe pray always, because this is all applies, because like even the scholars would say you're not expected to put your life into danger. Yeah. So this was the idea basically, and it was more important in Shia Islam for historical reasons. That's why like maybe people who are more familiar with Shia Islam are probably more familiar with the term.
Right, yeah, maybe it's my Sunni privilege that I just never encountered it, perhaps.
But, and I think the reason is also that, like, if I remember correctly, like the concept was not necessarily named taqiyya also in Sunni context. There were like some scholars who would phrase something particular like that, but only like in Shia Islam it has like this particular term as well.
You've got some excellent pronunciation of the qaf. Taqiyya. My dad would be proud.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that, because my Arabic is still like there's room for improvement. Yeah. But I think like actually for German speaker, my uncle even said that, my Moroccan uncle, like for German speaker, Arabic is not that hard, at least compared to other European speakers, like for example French people.
You guys have a lot of the throaty.
Yeah, it's more of a it's a larger range of sounds, like in German. Like for example, like in German language this is used quite often, but many people, English speakers or particularly French speakers, of course, they have like a huge difficulty with that.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, anyway, so it's not a noteworthy concept at all, actually. Yeah. But it is, of course, useful to like twist it into something that can fit like a grand mythos of a Muslim conspiracy. And we see that we are seeing this right now at its peak. So of course he just pretended to be an ex-Muslim.
Yeah, so this is like now the right-wing cope, right? After that whole narrative was completely debunked that it was a Muslim migrant, and this is why Muslims should not be allowed. Now they have to come up with something. It's like, actually, he's not ex-Muslim. He was just doing taqiyya. He was just pretending to be ex-Muslim all this time. Which is, what a shifty, conniving Muslim would do. Of course, he would plot.
Of course.
Yeah.
What I find funny is that, at least in Germany, they cannot come up to like a consistent narrative of how this taqiyya actually plays out. So Ali Utlu first said he was a Saudi spy. He was like a...
And that's the Turkish, German, gay, ex-Muslim, right-wing.
Yeah, right-wing, grifter, everything.
Right.
So he said he was a Saudi spy, sleeper agent, basically to snitch on Saudi dissidents here in Germany. Which this likes to explain, however, is that Saudi Arabia, which now Saudi loyalists and on the net this narrative are pushing, that Saudi expected Germany to hand him over.
Right, because why? Like, being an ex-Muslim who's vocally critical of Islam, I mean, why would a country want to hand that person to Saudi Arabia? Like, before they know any sort of terrorist inclination, you're thinking, well, this person will be killed if he goes back.
This is like also what especially some Saudi loyalists are now saying, like, no, he was persecuted for some, I think for sexual assault or anything like that. They're claiming. Either way, he's still an outspoken apostate, which is life-threatening in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. So like there's no guarantee that he wouldn't get executed for apostasy if Germany would hand him over. But so of course Germany could not hand a person like this over, and I would definitely not expect them even now after what he did. Yeah. I would be against them handing him over. He can
serve whatever the law says he should serve in Germany for his attack.
Yeah, but this is like always, of course, when it comes to any kind of migrant crime, that the German solution is remigration. Like send them back to wherever. Back. Yeah, send them back to the Taliban. Send them back to before last month. Send them back to Assad. Yeah, like we were trying to do that, like send them back to Turkey or send them back to even to Iran. We had even like people being deported to Iran.
Wow, yeah? Even like in the Netherlands after this football hooligan stuff, people have even Geert Wilders have wanted to like strip them of their citizenships and send them back.
For beating up a bunch of racist, fascist hooligans
who are trying to beat them. Who
have rape songs.
Yeah,
like traditional rape songs.
Yeah, traditional rape songs. That's right.
But yeah. So like, since we still have our center-left government, quote unquote, in Germany, considering how many people they have deported, I'm afraid that they could go for this route, specifically shortly before elections, because some people may know Germany is going to have re-elections because our governing coalition fell apart. Mm-hmm. And so the government doesn't have a majority anymore in the parliament. And the parliament has voted on, I'm not sure what the actual term is in English. In Germany, we would say like distrust towards the chancellor.
Yeah, yeah.
And his government. So we are going to have re-elections really soon.
Yeah, and we're heading there as well. So I don't know what's happening in this world.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, and our government, I'm certain they will not try to depict themselves. They will try. They want to win voters from the far right. So
which will never work.
Which never ever worked in history. But but they keep believing this shit. So like for example, it's our Interior Minister Nancy Faeser. So she made just recently a statement regarding the attack in Magdeburg, where she expressed her own confusion with like the perpetrator of it, because she said it looks like an Islamist attack, but as it turns out, the perpetrator was an enemy of Islam. This is like the wording she uses. And there's basically, the police is going for the same narrative. There was no mold he would fit in.
Yeah, I think there's a mold.
Yeah, everybody's saying like there is certainly a mold. And the thing is, and this may shock you, this is not the first time something like this happened in Germany.
Right.
It's the second time. We had back in 2016 I can remember this quite vividly because I was studying in Munich at that time, but I was thankfully not there when it happened. It was like it was a shooting attack at a mall in Munich, the Olympia Center. And the perpetrator was aiming specifically for like young people who are migrant heritage to some degree. Like I think it was 9 dead and 7 were Muslims.
Oh my gosh!
But the thing is, the perpetrator, the first name that like was in media was Ali S.
Oh.
So, and of course, everyone believed that this is an Islamist attack. And then later it was changed to David S., which people find confusing. And then it turned out the perpetrator was a young Iranian teenager, or a German teenager of Iranian descent, more precisely, who has changed his name from Ali to David, who apparently also converted to Christianity, and who was far into like neo-Nazi right-wing stuff, who considered himself like an Aryan and so on.
Wow.
And was bullied by like particularly Turkish fellow students at school, and this was like his act of revenge.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a right-wing attack. Germany first didn't consider it a terror attack at all after it came out that it was not an Islamist motivated attack. And they considered it like, yeah, he was ideologically on the far right, even on a neo-Nazi right.
Mm-hmm.
But they considered it like, we say amok, which is like just like a killing spree,
mm-hmm.
like without any purpose, because he was bullied. That's how they tried to frame it. Because he was bullied, it is not a terror attack. It's like a personal vendetta. And but later, like, and until this day, like experts are insisting this can and should be considered politically motivated.
Right.
Because it was infused by this for the whole act. Like I'm racially superior, and he was aiming particularly for young people his age who look of a migrant descent, even though he himself was.
Right.
So like this was absolutely a right-wing terror attack that happened back in 2016, which still some people want to deny, and which still back then German right-wingers wanted to insist was actually a secret Islamist ploy because he was born Ali.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah. It's really something.
So this is the second time something like this happened. It's insane that it's the second time. Like, but right now it's even more like all over the top because he was such an expressed and profound ex-Muslim. Known in the scene. Like there was even like I saw a BBC interview with him years ago where like the BBC would interview him about
this current Magdeburg attacker.
Like right now it's even more extreme than back in 2016 with the attack in Munich. It's an even more extreme, like people are even more all over the place. And it has, on one hand, to do, as I just said, with the fact that he's even a more outspoken ex-Muslim, but also like the far right atmosphere in between these couple of years has become even more extreme, and you can see it. People are far more open to like conspiracy theories, and you have even like larger accounts who would now talk about taqiyya and all of this stuff. I mean, you have Elon Musk himself sharing videos claiming that this was taqiyya.
Yes, it's so. I mean, Elon Musk's effect on the whole world is so fucked. Like, I don't know how and when we as a society will collectively realize that he is really destroying the very fabric of our societies at his will. He's deciding when people support AfD, and he's inciting fear against migrants, against minorities, against trans people. It's just it's like super fucking dangerous.
And he's completely untouchable because of his wealth.
Exactly. I mean, has there ever been such a perfect example of why billionaires simply should not
exist?
Yes.
Yeah, like, no. Like this is a...
He's manipulating the news.
I'm not saying I agree with them, but I can at least see where they're coming from. There are some leftists who claim that his existence is actually good because it radicalizes people.
Oh, okay.
like I'm not sure I'm on. I would fully agree with that.
No, I don't.
But there is a grain of truth into this, that I recognize people who are like more on the left liberal side getting more open to like more, I would say, more radical progressive ideas about substantial change, because they can see how much damage this can actually do. But we don't want to derail here. Going back to the issue at hand. So
there was another ex-Muslim shooter in 2020 at an Afghan supermarket.
I didn't. You told me that. You have showed me that. I didn't even hear of that one.
Yeah, it didn't get much press, and I don't know if his if his motives were directly related to his ex-Muslimness, and since there wasn't much coverage, we can't really say much about it. But a couple of people, I think, there was a father that was shot and killed. He was just getting groceries with his child. And I know that a couple of ex-Muslim accounts covered it, and then some Muslim accounts covered it, and then it became like a ex-Muslim versus Muslim thing. And I don't know. I honestly don't know what the motivation was, but there was barely any coverage. But there is a trend of ex-Muslims that are getting increasingly radicalized. Like, we can just see that online. I mean, I have been, and you have been. We have talked about it, for years. Mm-hmm. And to just act like this is out of the blue, there's no mold that this can fit in. I mean, there's an absolute.
There is a mold, yeah.
Of course.
It's absolutely not that like even if you are a foreigner in a particular society, for whatever reason, you can fall into a trap of like a regressive far right-wing ideology. The same way, like, look, the most famous Salafi Islamists in Germany are Germans without any kind of migrant heritage. Converts. Mm-hmm. Like if I think of the most famous one, it's Pierre Vogel, or AKA Abu Hamza. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like of course, if people can be attracted, it can happen. I'm not saying it naturally happens, but it can happen that for whatever personal biographical reasons, people can be attracted by such ideologies, even if they are technically part of a different demographic group who is not immediately associated with this ideology, right?
Yeah, of course.
And we have seen it in Germany, like, ironically now twice. Yeah. So and also in the AfD, there are members who are not who have like parents or were born from a different country or were themselves born in a different country.
Yeah, and isn't there like a Jews for AfD group as well, and AFD.
There is, but I have to say at this point, the person who basically founded this is like, from what I know, like, you know, like one of those Jews for Jesus.
Oh, okay.
But they don't want to express it too loudly. But like he's like more on the evangelical side, who like now quote unquote converted to Judaism, but like Jesus is still the Messiah, and this is all about this. The Jews have to return to the promised land, and then rapture will happen, and whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, so we have this in Germany as well.
Yeah. But it seems like there's like minorities in every hate group, right?
Of course, and like even like liberal Muslims, like I would say in Germany, you have even liberal Muslims who are like more on the center right, but who will also spew like insane anti-immigration kind of sentiments.
Yeah.
Same in Austria, by the way. You have a liberal Muslim who used to be in Austria Green Party, I think, and at some point actually got together with Martin Sellner. Do you know Martin Sellner?
No.
Identitarian movement.
Oh, Sellner. Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
I just wasn't picking up on the correct pronunciation.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, so like, I do know him.
So I don't agree with him, but like, you know, that kind of stuff.
Jeez.
Yeah? So
okay. That's extreme.
You have like a whole list of people, liberal Muslim, ExMuslims or otherwise, who are like the perfect tokens.
Yeah.
And when it comes to ex-Muslims in this case in particular, I'm like somewhat surprised that they like that like at least the big accounts, like the one who made a career out of it, that they are insisting on this Taqiyya narrative, because I'm actually like, can you not see that this will come back to haunt you?
Exactly. Like, I mean, you can be accused of Taqiyya next. So
yeah, like this is all double, triple Taqiyya. You know?
It's happening. I'm seeing it. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I mean,
I mean, people are right now in Germany, also on the center right, are basically saying it's completely of no substance whether he was Islamist or not. What matters is that he was an Arab.
At least they're honest.
You know, at least they're honest. They are sometimes putting it into different words. But like, for example, here, Christoph de Vries. This is not AFD. This is CDU. This is center right. Mm-hmm. This is center right, basically saying, yeah, well, he was not an Islamist. He was an Islamophobe, unlike what many AFD politicians have assumed. Yet, and then he continues, this is the third attack by a person of such of an Arab descent. And it's
just grouping it in with the Islamist attacks, basically.
No, he's saying particularly Arab descent, which, by the way, he particularly names the Islamist attack from Mannheim, where the perpetrator was an Afghan and not an Arab. But
okay, yeah,
who cares? It's all the same anyway.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, it says the third attack by an Arab migrant, which cost in this year, which cost its life. And obviously, our safety and security in this country is threatened by these people. Yeah, this is the wording he uses, regardless of the motive. and we need like,
we're threatened by their skin color.
But you know, like, people got offended by the term anti-Muslim racism when they say, "Oh, Muslims are not a race." First of all,
oh God, that's such an old talking point. Like,
first of all, I know in America particularly the term race has a different connotation, but I want to say there is no such a thing as races in humanity. Like, for example, in German terminology, when it comes to biology, what we mean by race does not exist in the nature of humanity at all.
Right. It's just our perceived racialization.
It's always, you know, it's always ideology.
Yeah.
It's always ideology. And what we call racism is like the process of racializing a certain identity.
Yeah.
Like what I've pointed out to people when it comes to like anti-Muslim bigotry, it's not new. Like in the times of colonialism and Orientalism, before Europeans more precisely actually started to measure heads and focus like on physical features, there was also the assumption that like a race primarily expresses itself through its cultural products, meaning its language and its religion. So like all the terms that were used in the colonial time and in the times of racial pseudoscience for like alleged races were adapted from the studies of languages. Like, for example, Semitic, right? Hebrew, Arabic, Aramaic, Amharic, Ge'ez. These are Semitic languages. And because we can show that these languages are in fact related, back then people also assumed that the people who speak these languages are related to some degree. Iranian, Farsi, Hindi, Kurdish, Urdu, but also like German, English, Swedish, Spanish, and so on, are all part of the Indo-Germanic language group, and these people were later labeled as Aryans. So, because the term Aryan derives from Persian, so and like Orientalists like Ernest Renan actually also extended this to religion and said like there are Semitic religions and there are Aryan religions, and while Aryan religions are more rational and tolerant, the Semitic ones are, like Judaism and Islam in particular, are more prone to like intolerance, to fanaticism, to blind ritualism, and have a natural opposition towards science.
Right. So some OG new atheist stuff there.
But this, as I said, this is like 19th century.
I know.
So this is, but the spirit of it is still really, really there.
Of course. So, yeah, absolutely.
And the spirit of it is still really there. And like Renan said, while the Muslims had like a certain time of like scientific accomplishments, this was because of their influence through like Aryan cultures like the Greeks and the Persians. However, over the time, this collapsed because the religion would succeed over the influence of the Aryan culture. And basically, even like the quote-unquote Aryan Muslims are not true Aryans anymore because they have been Semiticized, so to speak.
Oh, wow.
By the religion of Islam. Christianity, by the way, was exactly the opposite for Renan. Christianity was the idea of overcoming Semitic nature. Jesus became an Aryan in the idea of Ernest Renan. So like Christianity is the whole concept of succeeding over Judaism. So what you can see here, this is like, while they may not use the terminology of Ernest Renan anymore, the idea that, whether you're atheist or not, whether you're converted or not, this Islam is basically in your blood. It's in your genes. Right. It's part of your nature. Yeah. This is still there. Yeah, right. This is still there, and that's why like anti-Muslim bigotry is indeed racism. It's a form of racism. Right. And at a certain point, it can get anybody. And when I see these ex-Muslims like Ali Utlu or whoever is currently using this Taqiyya thing, this will come back to haunt you. You're shooting yourself in your own foot. You think of self-preservation right now, but it's self-preservation of your career, not of yourself. Yeah. Because at some point people will say, yeah, you should leave as well. Because you are also an alien. Exactly. You are also not part of us. You are also born into a different culture. Exactly. Like the far right have picked up in Germany particularly on this, funnily enough. You have people who want to insist he was a secret Islamist, but there are many like influential far right. Like, for example, Julian Reichelt. Julian Reichelt used to be the chief editor of Bild, of like the best-selling German newspaper tabloid, and also like part of Springer. He was fired from that position because of what? Obviously because of sexual misconduct. Oh. Like the classic. Yeah. Not because of his far right. No. Yeah. No. So he like went out and he now founded his own like German-styled Fox News, which he calls news, but like written Neus, which is cringe as fuck. But yeah, like it's like a German Fox News, super far right wing, and he himself went on Twitter and said, like, this is like an Islamic tribal war for him.
Oh, so like between the ex-Muslims and the Muslims?
Like, yeah, he said it's still born out of Islam.
Oh, wow.
Even if he was an ex-Muslim, for him this is a Islamic tribal dispute.
Wow.
Fought on our soil.
Oh,
this is exactly the wording he uses.
That's incredible. I don't know how like the many far-right ex-Muslims would react to being dismissed as part of an Islamic tribal war. That's insane and funny and horrifying.
This is at the end of the alley. You know what I'm saying?
Please subscribe via patreon.com/nicemangoes to access the extended version of this conversation. This podcast can only exist with support from listeners like you. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support it, there are several ways you can do that. You can share it online, talk about what you just heard. You can leave a 5-star review to help others find it too. And you can also subscribe via patreon.com/nicemangoes. No E in mangoes. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter before it's completely wrecked, you'll find me at Nice Mangoes. Again, no E in mangoes.